We're back with Democratic Senators Ben Nelson and Sherrod Brown and Republican Orrin Hatch. Big policy decisions being made in the health care debate, and the politics are getting pretty bruising. Senator Nelson, on your television set today in Nebraska, you will see an ad by a group, the Americans for Tax Reform. They say you signed an anti-tax pledge back in 2006, and that if you support the Democratic health care proposals, you will be breaking that promise to the voters of Nebraska. Let's listen to a snippet of this ad.
The only senator in his party to stand with taxpayers and take the pledge. No tax increases. Senator Ben Nelson. But now, others in Congress want hundreds of billions in new health care taxes.
You had a conversation, Senator Nelson, with your leader, the majority leader, on Friday. He needs your vote to get to the magic number of 60 in the Senate on procedural issues. You have raised serious concerns about the public option. If there is a vote and Harry Reid needs 60, have you promised him, even if you disagree with the proposal and might vote no on the proposal, you would give him your vote on the procedural issue?
I've made no promise. I can't decide about the procedural vote until I see the underlying bill. It would be, I think, reckless to say I'll support procedure without knowing what the underlying bill consists of, and it's not put together yet. It'll be a draft bill sometime next week, submitted to the Congressional Budget Office for the review of the costs, and until I've seen a
well, let me jump in.
Draft,
can you support a public option where states could opt out? So there is a public option in the federal legislation, or will you only support a public option where the state would have to opt in? So there's not a national program already created.
Well, I certainly am not excited about a public option where states would opt out, or a robust, as they call it, robust government-run insurance plan. I'll take a look at the one where states could opt in if they make the decision themselves. Look, I'm a Jeffersonian Democrat. I think the states can make decisions on their own about their own citizens, and so I certainly would look at that. But I'm not sure where this is going. I don't think we know at this point in time, and so I don't think I can make any decision about anything until I've seen everything.
Senator Brown, let me come to you. A big state, healthcare is a huge issue. I'm wondering if you share the frustration that many progressives on the House side share when they're told, well, the White House is pushing this idea of a trigger maybe because they want to keep Senator Olympia Snowe of Maine, the one Republican who has backed it in the Senate so far. There are many. Lynn Woolsey in the House last week said, this is the United States of America, not the United States of Maine. Is the White House, is that the calculation wrong here?
Well, I'll answer the question about the trigger first. The trigger says, let's give the insurance companies 2 more years after they've had 5 decades since World War II to do things right. They continue their practices of pre-existing condition. Reports recently that a woman that has a C-section by some insurance companies will be denied care because that's considered a pre-existing condition. A woman that's been a victim of domestic violence is that's considered a pre-existing condition because her husband or boyfriend or whoever is more likely to hit her again. I mean, the insurance companies have had their chance to do this right. We need the public option now. We need it in large part because it will inject competition into places where they don't have it. In Southwest Ohio, in my state, 2 insurance companies have 85% of the market. Well, they need more competition to discipline those companies, to make them more honest, to bring prices down. That's why the trigger simply doesn't work. We don't give the insurance companies 2 more years or 3 more years to get their act together. They've had their chance. I'm fine with a state opt-out. If Nebraska or Utah doesn't want to do the public option, their governor and legislature can pass a law saying we're not going to give our citizens that right to have a public option.
Is that a line in the sand for you? Many have talked about, well, you might lose Olympia Snowe if you don't have a trigger. Would they lose Sherrod Brown if you do have a trigger?
No, I don't draw lines in the sand. I've gotten a lot of pressure from progressives saying draw a line in the sand. I don't want to do that. I want to get the best bill possible. But I see that the public overwhelmingly wants a public option. 70% of physicians, according to a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, want a public option. At least 52 or 3 or 4 Democratic senators have said they want a strong public option, according to Tom Harkin, the chairman of the committee. I think that that's the best thing for our country.
Well, Senator Hatch, come in on this, because you hear these two Democrats making their case for health care reform, and what they hear from Republicans is no public option. These two disagree perhaps on exactly how to do it, but they're both open to some proposal. I'm going to show the front page of the New York Times. Small business faces sharp rise in health care costs. The story goes on to say insurance brokers and benefits consultants say their small business clients are seeing premiums go up on average about 15% for the coming year, double the rate of last year's increase. That means the annual premium that was $4,500 per employee in 2008 and $4,800 this year would rise to $5,500 in 2010. If, Senator Hatch, there can be, in your view, no public option, that's too much of a government role in this, what is the Republican answer to force the insurance companies to bring down rates?
Well, first of all, we know that Medicare, for instance, was enacted in 1965. That's a public option. Today, it's $38 trillion in unfunded liability. Medicaid is going broke within the next 10 years. We know that if the Democrats get 60 votes in the Senate, we're going to have a public option. It may not be called that, and they may call an opt-out, but I guarantee you the process will go there. And why? Because they're going to have in this bill that they're going to cover people of 133% of the poverty level, and that's, like I say, that's 33% above New York's current expenditure. It's almost double what our expenditure is in Utah. If that happens, the states can't live with it. You're going to have a fiasco on your hands. So this vote to stop 60 votes in the Senate is really crucial. Now, Republicans, we have 6 various plans. I agree with those who say that the states can solve their problems better than the federal government. Anybody who believes that this 1,500-page bill, by the way, Hillary Care was only 1,300 pages. This gives you some idea. That's just the bill out of the Finance Committee. Anybody believes that that's going to not raise taxes, not increase the deficit, and not affect our benefits, that's why the American people are so concerned. They know that if the federal government takes over this, we're all going to be in trouble, and it all comes down to whether or not we can stop them from getting 60 votes in the Senate. Republicans would like 50 state laboratories, 50 states working on these things with, yes, the help from the federal government, and doing it in accordance with the needs of those states. If we did that, I think you'd find a really good health care system that would incrementally grow, be better, save costs, bring down insurance premiums from where they are going to go if we don't. And I have to say, stop the federal government from taking over everything in our lives.
Let me ask the two Democrats quickly in closing. After hearing that, Senator Hatch's impassioned case, Senator Brown, to you first, and quickly, please, do you care about having a Republican vote on this bill, or do you just want to get the bill?
I'd love to see Republicans votes in the Help Committee, on which Senator Hatch and I sit. We accepted 160 Republican amendments, a couple dozen from Senator Hatch that I think improved the bill. So it comes down to philosophically, and you could hear that in Orrin's comments, that Orrin and his party don't much like Medicare. They voted against it in overwhelming numbers 40 years ago.
We don't like the way it's run.
And he talked about the $38 trillion, which is really a myth, of unfunded liability. The fact is, Medicare works. Government can play a positive role. Medicare has 3 or 4% overhead, administrative expenses. Private insurance has 20 to 30%. So the public option is just going to keep the insurance companies more honest. It's going to help bring prices down. It's an option. You can choose Aetna or Cigna. You can choose a company just down the street from me, Medical Mutual, if you live in Cleveland or Akron. But you can also choose the public option. Just an option. That's all we're asking.
Senator Nelson, very quickly, you're from a conservative state. Can you vote for this bill if you don't have what I'll call Republican cover?
Well, I've said, I think essentially what the late Senator Pat Moynihan said, that any landmark legislation ought to have about 2/3 of the Senate. When I said that, that obviously means that I think it ought to have bipartisan support. And I think if you go with a state-based public option, you can get bipartisan support. I think we're all more comfortable. The people will be more comfortable if the states are engaged in taking care of the situation, recognizing that Utah's problems and California's problems are different than Nebraska's problems.
Gentlemen, we thank you all for coming in today. Senator Hatch,
you.
Senator Brown, Senator Nelson, thank you so much. We'll have you back at another time, I promise you. Thanks for watching this week's State of the Union podcast. You can find us on iTunes or at cnn.com/podcast. State of the Union airs every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I'm John King in Washington.